Okay, welcome back to my channel. This is your travel prophet Mo, and we are continuing the series of foreigners sharing their experiences living in Japan in 2023. And our guest is Dylan O'Connell, and he'll be telling us where he's from and his journey since he's been in Japan, and we'll be giving you some advice, tips, and lessons that he have learned being here as a foreigner, so you can better prepare yourself. If it is that you decide to come to Japan to live for a while, you'll know what you need to get done before and what it's like living here, so you can prepare mentally for that. So without further ado, let us welcome Dylan. Welcome, Dylan.
Thank you for interviewing me.
And thank you so much
to share some information.
Yes, and thank you so much for your time and agreeing to participate. Just for us to just share with other persons based on our experiences. All right, so Dylan, tell us where you are from, your country, and probably state, depending on which country you're from, and what was the process like coming
Yes, I'm from the
decide to
United
come?
States. I'm from New Hampshire, which no one has ever heard of, but that's okay. And I've been in Japan now for about 2 years. I live in Hyogo prefecture, about an hour and a half north of Kobe, so a little bit rural.
Yeah. And okay, let's talk about Hyogo prefecture. But before we go there, what was the process like coming to Japan? So tell us about like an interview process from the US in New Hampshire, what you had to get prepared, how much money you needed for the travel, that kind of a thing, that process, and coming to Japan.
So I applied while I was in my last year of college, which also coincidentally occurred with the beginning of COVID, which was great. And so the initial process of applying was much like what I imagine the process now is. But after that initial process, when COVID really set in, there was all this extra stuff that was super aggravating to deal with. And I assume it's not that case anymore. But regardless, the application process for me was very easy because through college, we had like the academic and career advising center. And the career advisor who I talked with had also been on JET before. So I was able to talk with her very thoroughly about like, what do I need to get done? A lot of paperwork is pretty easy to do. You know, you just have to have that paperwork in the first place. But the most difficult thing was writing the essay, because it's only 2 pages, and which is very limited space to try to make your pitch as to why Japan should choose you out of hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. But very thankfully, she was able to give me really good advice. And I wrote maybe 3 or 4 drafts and submitted them to her. And every time she's like, change this, change that. That's good. Keep it. Expand on this a little bit. And so that made the application process less stressful to have someone kind of help walk me through it as well. Afterwards, I was thankfully accepted in the paper application, and then doing the interview, I drove about 2 hours from college into the city, and I thought I dressed up. Again, going to the career advisor, I had worn a suit that I thought would be fine for an interview. Come to find out, no, it was not fine. She was like, nah, that's too casual. I was like, this is casual? These are my nice clothes. But she was like, nope, wear white shirt, simple red or blue tie, all black suit, jacket, and pants. Sure enough, I definitely looked better for the interview. And then with the interview, there was the American who I think had been part of JET previously, as well as 2 Japanese people, I think maybe one from the program, and then one who was just a Japanese teacher. So it's a panel of 3 people giving this interview. And I had done a lot of preparation beforehand, classic interview questions and thinking of what they would ask me. Of course, there are still a few curveballs in there anyway, but having done as much preparation as I could have, I think I did decently well, and apparently well enough to get accepted in the first place. So,
Okay. And so in terms of the preparation process to get to Japan, how much money did they tell you that you need? Did you know about like your placement before? What did you take with you to Japan to help you transition from, the Western way of doing things and in terms of food and such to make the transition to Japan?
So I was very fortunate in that regard. They did tell me to have about $2,000 ready because it would take a while to get that first paycheck in, and then you would want money available. So depending on how furnished where you're living is, to buy what you need, at least for the first month or two. I was very fortunate in that this apartment that you see is where all of the ALTs who teach at the schools that I teach have stayed in previously. So I was put into contact with the ALT who was here before I came, and we exchanged emails, and she gave me all this information. She's like, you don't need this, you don't need this. Like, there's a couch here, you have dishes, you have a refrigerator. Like, I came and really didn't need to buy a lot of furnishing, which was awesome. But not going to be the case for everybody, for sure. The things that I did bring at that point then were mostly clothes. And New Hampshire, my state, is pretty seasonal. Like, we get all 4 seasons. Summer is hot, spring is humid, but we also get full winters with snow. And I don't think I was as prepared to have less snow where I live now, because I brought some winter jackets and some thick pants. And those do come in handy when it's cold, but it's never snowing the way I'm wanting it to, honestly. So I think in that regard, I was a little over prepared, but I mostly just brought clothes and figured if I needed anything, I had the money to be able to buy it.
Okay, so $2,000. You got in contact, and that's an important point. If it is that you can get in contact, whether or not you're coming on the JET program, any program you're coming on, if it is that you can get in contact with somebody who is either here or have been here that you're replacing, that is really helpful, because at least they'll be able to tell you from a foreigner's perspective what exactly you're getting into, what you will need and what you won't need. So how about food? Did you take any food? Oh, go ahead.
Food from America? No, I had no space. The only thing I brought snacks for teachers, like, hey, I'm the new foreigner here. But it was way too many snacks. It was just like a waste of space. I would prioritize bringing small gifts for like principal, vice principal. If you have the space, bring snacks for your teachers. But I had no idea how many teachers I had, especially between 2 schools.
You're at 2 schools.
Yeah, so I brought like 2 pounds of candy to give out, 1 at each school. And the problem was, because I came during COVID, we had to go through quarantine. So 2 weeks in the hotel. So not only the, almost a day flight and then 2 weeks in a hotel, and then I go to school, the candy's been sitting around for 2 weeks in humid and gross weather. It's not as good anymore.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bring snacks, make sure that they can take the trip and the change in climate. Otherwise, just having like little physical things, like little knickknacks, is probably a little better. So I just visited home for a vacation, and I came back and I gave my English teachers, and only my English teachers, I gave them coasters. Because they're super thin. You can just stack them up on each other. They don't weigh a lot, but it's an easy gift to give.
Yeah. And did you come alone, or you came with family?
I came alone. Yes.
Oh, you came alone. Okay. All right. All right. So you talk about the paperwork. Coming here, remember the omiyagis, guys, for your JTEs. and
Yeah.
like vice principal, principals.
Mm.
Yeah.
I remember when I first came, I got my principals, so principal and vice principal, I got them decks of cards. And that was like the
Oh,
only thing
okay. All right. So about your housing, what was the cost for housing? Did you have to pay anything like key money or
No,
anything like that? Rent
no.
in advance?
Fortunately, this apartment is kind of technically owned by the school, and I think my housing situation is subsidized, so I only pay maybe 30,000 yen a month, 35,000 yen a month, so which is not bad at all. But I have heard horror stories of other people who have shown up and their schools were like totally unprepared for them, and then they kind of had to find their own housing, which is where having that money prepared really comes in handy. But my situation was super easy, very thankfully. The one thing that I did have to get set up after coming here was Wi-Fi. There was no local internet situation in here, so I had to, using my phone provider or my data provider, I contacted them because they also did internet, and I just had them immediately send that over as soon as they could. And that was a
Okay.
pretty easy process, thankfully.
Okay, nice. So your house was basically furnished. So he never had the trouble of challenge of actually going to get things. So the
No,
$2,000 he really
no,
didn't
not
need
really.
that much. So again, it depends on your situation, guys. Because some people spend no money at all, just your rent. Some people have to pay key money and deposit, and they have to like furnish their own apartment
Mm.
or house. And his house is actually subsidized. So that's good. So what about like transportation in your area and like local supermarkets? Where exactly in Hyogo are you again?
About an hour and a half north of Kobe. I live in Katoshi.
Oh, Kato.
Um,
Okay.
mm. And I get by just by walking, although that's just me being stubborn. I just refuse to like pay for a bicycle. And one of my schools, the school in town, to get to it, it's like mostly uphill. So the bike would be useless to me in the morning. It would only be in the afternoon that would be good. But the nice thing about where I live is I'm right on the end of the kind of major bus lines. Literally a stone's throw away from my apartment is a bus station, not just a stop, but the actual station where buses leave from. So from where I'm at, I can get on a bus to Himeji, to Akashi, to Kobe, and even to Osaka. Sometimes from the station, sometimes I have to walk a bit further to the highway, but it's really not that bad. And the other mode of transportation, the train, is like a 30-40 minute walk, which I don't mind taking sometimes, but I can also usually just take a bus that's on its way over there and just get off. So if I lived any more rural, I would probably want a car, but I very thankfully don't feel like I need it. It would certainly be convenient, and even having a bike would be convenient, but I can get by without it.
So it's basically not a need.
It's not
Like
a
my
need.
area, we don't have the train station, bus station, like everything is just
Yeah,
far
yeah.
away. All right. So what about like doing your grocery shopping? And so it's easy for you to get around
Mm,
because like transportation, it's close by your apartment. So you don't have an
yeah.
issue with that. So what about like um what about like
Grocery
uh
shopping.
grocery shopping? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, very fortunate based on where my apartment is. I have like just next to the bus stop or the bus station over there is an Eon. So I just walk down the hill, get it, and the hardest part is just walking back up. Or basically a same distance, but that way is just a dedicated grocery store, a Bon Marché.
Oh,
So I'm right in between the two of them. So if
okay.
I'm going to my school in town and I need groceries on the way back, I can just hit that grocery store over there. If I'm to go to my second school, I have to take the bus, which I get reimbursed for, which is nice. But
Mm.
on the way back up, that bus stops at Eon, so I can just get off and go into
Oh,
Eon and
wow.
get something if I need to.
Okay, so you do get reimbursement for transportation for your visit school.
Yes.
Really correct.
So they said that before I came as well. They were like, you're going to be traveling by bus to your second school, but they will pay you the cost of the bus ride.
So he has two schools. So depending on where you are too, the number of school is depending on the need in your area and the number of ALTs in your area. So for like Dylan, he has two schools, and both schools are in Kato?
No, the second school is in Onoshi. So it's
Oh
like
no.
20 minutes away by bus.
Okay. All right, no problem. And oh well, he didn't need a driver's license. But guys, find out where you're going first, or even if you don't, if you don't know, please get your international driver's license. So in the event that you have to drive when you get here, you won't experience any challenges, because to get the Japanese driver's license, it's sometimes difficult, and it also depends on your instructor for that day when you go there. All right. So, which level do you teach? So you teach at two schools. So tell me about the
Yeah.
schools now. Which level do you teach?
I teach senior high school.
Senior high schools. Okay. And how are the students? Your JTEs? What's it like at that school?
So both schools are very different from one another. One school is like a sports school, and they have one class of students who they're all boys and they live on campus, and they only have classes in the morning, and all afternoon they're just exercising or practicing their sports, and all weekend they just practice their sports. So it's a heavy sports school. And my second school is a technical school. So they have a million buildings, but they're mostly full of heavy machinery that they're teaching the students how to operate. And most of the students that I talk to are going to leave school and just go right into the workforce because they have all of these practical technical skills. So at that technical school, they generally have a lower English ability because A, they don't think they really need it. B, they're not continuing into higher education. They're just continuing into the workforce where, I'm going to be honest, they probably won't use much English. At my main school, though, even though it's a sports school, there are a few more academic types there, and more students there want to continue on to college. So it generally has a higher English level, and some of them blow me away. I have one student who can speak phenomenal English, and I love it. But I've also been to other high schools, and I've seen how other high schools are on higher or lower level. So it all is relative. No one, I've only been to one high school where I'm like, every student here is good. Every other high school I've ever visited, I've always been like, okay, there's kind of like an average level. And I think my main school is on that average level, and my second school is a little bit below average. And my teachers are great at handling those different kinds of students. So with the second school, they have very high energy, and because they don't want to learn English, they're always very distracted. But my teachers are generally very good at focusing their attention on the subject at hand, whether it's exciting or boring or whatever we're doing in class. And I only have two teachers I work with at that school, which makes it easy to coordinate what our lessons are going to be. But at my main school, I have about 5 teachers I work with, and I only do 2 of the grades. But there's so many classes, and sometimes we do different things with the classes. Even though the teachers are really good at handling the students, sometimes it's difficult for me to remember what is it exactly we're doing. And sometimes the variations between classes, some classes are higher level than others in the same grade. So second year students, there's the sports class, the guys who live on campus, they do not have a high level of English, but they're always very energetic. So I'm like, all right, we're playing games to review words. So you just have a fun time. I'm not about to teach you grammar because that would not go well. Whereas the students who are focusing on focusing on language skills is like a class meant for that. Those students I can have a little bit more difficult English lessons with. And my teachers are very good about supporting either the lowish level class or the highest level class.
Okay, so you do have support inside of school with the teachers and such. What about in your private life? Do you have like a good support system with anyone, JTE or the vice principal, even when you came there and was supposed to settle in, and even now that you've been here over 2 years?
Yeah, when I first came to Japan, I would say it took me a few months to really settle in and get into my rhythm.
Mm.
So I came in October, and I wouldn't say it was until like January after the new year where I was like, oh, this is how everything works. Got it.
Mm.
It took me a long time to really meet and get comfortable with people. And the problem, I don't know if this is the same with other schools, but my JTEs often stay super late. They're very busy. It wasn't easy for me to try to meet them outside of school if I wanted to. And a lot of them, I mean, they're all older. Some have kids. They have their own responsibilities, not just, they don't always have the time to go hang out with the new foreign guy. That said, once I did settle in and I did kind of make local contacts, which most of my friends are foreign friends. I have very few Japanese friends. But once I did find those people, I was like, oh, this is much more exciting to be able to text somebody and say, hey, do you want to go to the park, or do you want to go on a day trip to the city or something this weekend? And once I did have that support network, my experience here became much more exciting.
Yeah. So that's another thing, guys. Try to find the groups. So usually we use Line here. That's Japanese. That's basically like the WhatsApp. So it's a line that we use here. So if you can find your group where persons in your all the foreigners in your area, we usually have a group. If you can get in that group, it makes life so much easier because one, you get to know places around the area, and also you'd have a foreigner who you can relate to, because sometimes we want to vent for different reasons based on the challenges that we might be experiencing, and it would be good to get not just vent but also to get advice or troubleshoot, problem solve with each other so you can make your life here better.
Yeah, you and I are part of a group, but everyone in that group is so far away from each other. I don't we almost never use it.
Yeah, that is so true.
But I'm part of another group where it's just the people who live in the town where I teach at my second school, and they all live like right next to each other. So that's better. If you can have a group of people who live near each other, good. That'll make your life way easier.
Okay. I know one thing. What about in terms of shopping? So like cards, Japan is a cash society. So especially if you live in the countryside, what has been your experience with using card? Are you mainly go cash?
I
Setting up the
mainly
bank
go
account
cash.
and all of that.
Yeah, I mainly go cash. The one annoying thing about my bank is that if you try to withdraw money after 6 p.m. on the weekday, then they charge you like 110 yen to withdraw money. And if you withdraw from any other bank's ATM, then it's a 210 yen charge or 220 yen charge, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but that's my money. But because I don't have a Japanese credit card, I only have my American cards. So it's way easier for me to just pay for things in yen in cash. And there's a lot of things that you can surprisingly do that with. So I pay most of my bills that way. You can even, I think I even bought a ticket for USJ by doing that. You can often pay for it at a convenience store. And the only thing I use by card is my, oh, if I have it on me, I do. The only thing I use by card is the IC cards, which is something like this. This one's from Nagoya, and it's got a little birdie on it. And
yes, guys, you need one of that to travel around Japan.
yeah, it works on the bus, it works on the train. I can even pay for stuff at convenience stores if I don't have cash on me and I have surplus money on this. I'm like, give me a water and a rice bowl or onigiri.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, so you need an IC card. So once you're taking the train or the bus, it's easier to use the card to tap, and also on the trains most time, depending some train stations though, like in the Inaka.
Yeah, super rural trains.
Yeah, you have to pay by cash.
Yeah.
But many of the other trains is by card. You can't pay cash. It's really the card that you have to tap. So you have to top it up. And it's pretty easy to get one. So yes, that's one important thing.
Yeah,
You need an
every
ID
major
card.
train station you should be able to buy one at. And once you're done, you can actually sell it back to the train station.
Oh, you can? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
you
learned
get
something.
reimbursed. I think the card itself costs 500 yen.
Yes,
Like
the
when you
card.
first buy it, it's 500 yen for the card, and then they put 500 yen on it. And when you return it, you get the 500 yen that the card costs, as well as however much money is on it.
Is
Still.
on okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the IC card you can return it when you're leaving.
Mm.
If it is that you don't know anyone that would want it. And so in terms of like accessing like dental clinics or doctor's office, how has that, have you had any experience with that, and how has it been?
Yes. So I know I said earlier that teachers don't always have time, but sometimes when they do have time, that's when you ask them those questions. So I asked my teachers, I asked around. Fortunately, one of my teachers lives in the same town. So I was able to get recommendations from her about, I have this like minor medical issue. Where can I go? Or, where can I go to get like my teeth cleaned? And that's where asking teachers is great, because then when they do have the time, they can take you, and it's super easy because they can deal with all the difficult Japanese. And now I've been to the dentist enough. I think I went with my teacher one time, and the dentist spoke a little bit of English, but now I can speak a little bit of Japanese. So it's easy enough for me to go make the reservation, get my teeth cleaned, and just be out of there. If something more serious happened, I would probably call my teacher and get taken to a hospital if that was like the emergency situation. But thankfully, that has not happened yet. But I've only ever really been to clinics once or twice for minor things, like, I need a cream for something. Yeah. But the dentist was the one I was most worried about, and it's been super easy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. So you do have good support system, and usually you always have like a dental clinic or hospital close by, like in each town. It doesn't have to be a major town, so that's what I really like about here as well.
Yeah.
Which bank? I forgot to ask you this question. Which bank do you join, and are you able to use your card online? Because some banks here, guys, it's cash card that you get, so you can't use your card outside of that particular bank. So if you're going in the city, or if we have certain holidays, you have to ensure that you withdraw money from before, or you'll be that would be a big challenge for you to get money.
Yeah, my bank is Minato, because it's right over there, so it's super easy for me to just have that account with them. I think it's a cash card only. I've never tried to use it as a credit card. I've never felt the need to try to use it as a credit card. I do all my finances using the ATM exclusively. But I remember when I first got the account, there was some way I could access it online and maybe through that apply for a credit card. But I just never felt the need to do it. I was okay going cash. Using cash was always okay for me because I felt like it made me more responsible with my spending. And I have enough money around, maybe like once or twice a year, I'll transfer money from yen to dollars, and then I can use my credit card if I like really need to.
Yeah.
The only bills I pay by credit card are my internet and phone bills, but everything else is either automatically withdrawn or I pay by cash at the convenience store.
Convenience store. Yeah, so as you said that, so automatically, guys, what you can do if you don't want the hassle of actually paying your own bills, like for me, I set it up with my bank. I only have cash card as well, so I don't do online. Well, I haven't seen that option, but yeah, what
Yeah.
we do with JA Bank, I also set up all my deductions online. So like my gas, my electric, everything just goes. I get the actual bill, but the money just comes from my account. So I don't have to worry about going to the convenience store to pay anything. As you said, I pay my phone bill at the convenience store. And as you rightly mentioned, convenience store, trust me, guys, like Japan is really convenient when it comes down to certain things. So like paying for a ticket online if you want to go to USJ or Tokyo or certain bus tickets that you want to get. You don't have to worry about that. All you do is just go to the convenience store. They have a loppy machine or another machine that you can use, and you just pay everything there. So no hassle. I'm glad you mentioned the convenience store. All
Yeah,
right, so we're
the name
winding.
is true.
Huh?
I
One
said
more.
the name is true. Convenient is really, yeah, no kidding.
All right, so the last thing. What would you say is your most no, all right. Tell me two lessons that you've actually learned. If you want to share more, that's fine. So lessons that you've actually learned or advice that you'll actually give persons who want to come to Japan to live or visit. More live than visit. Yeah.
It's difficult. Two lessons. Well, this is a simple lesson, and I'll try to think of something better. But if you live around old people, don't be loud because that will not fly. I remember I went on a trip to like this very small rural town. They were trying to build up tourism, so they were giving free trips to people so that we could give feedback about what we liked or didn't like, so they could kind of build their own tourism industry. And I remember the guy who was hosting us talked about it's a very old rural town, as most rural towns in Japan are, and they want to save the town, they want to attract people, but there's also a lot of old people in the town who really don't like it when foreigners come in and make a bunch of noise. So that's just like a very minor thing, is getting the vibe of your neighbors and knowing what kind of energy level is expected in your local area. So I'm very quiet. I stay in my apartment and just kind of hide away, play video games or watch movies or something. But if you're in an area with a lot more older people than I am, I could make some noise. If you were with more older people, you definitely could not. That would be very rude and would get you a lot of dirty looks in the morning, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
One piece of advice, it's not like a lesson. It's something that mostly I do. It's very easy to look up things on your phone, like looking up things to do, how to get somewhere. And for transit in Japan, Google Maps is very good about telling you what buses and trains work. But there's something to be said for just finding a flyer and like finding a brochure. Whenever I go to a new city, I always get a brochure from the train station I'm arriving at, and it has like a physical layout map of the city. I'm going, okay, this is telling me more local places than you'd find online. It gives you a better idea of how the city is actually laid out, and it usually has good recommendations for food that can be more in your price range than what you might find recommended. And the way I figured out how my bus system worked was from a brochure from my city hall, where they had the bus map, the time schedule for every bus in a day, and what stops they made. And I was like, oh, this changes everything. Now I know. So finding those physical information packets, whether it's a brochure or a handout or just reading whatever's been posted on the sign outside of a bus station or train station or city hall, that pays off in spades. I swear to God. 21st century, people on their phones, but look at the paper. It works.
Yeah, and their bus system is very efficient. So if they tell you that they're coming at 5:10, it's gonna be at 5:10 and it's gonna leave right after. So
yeah, when I'm catching buses home, this is the one time I can use my phone. I will use my phone to I already know what time the bus should be coming, but if I pull up the bus website, it'll tell me exactly how many minutes it'll be delayed by. I'm like, how are you keeping track of this so thoroughly? There's no point. Like it's whatever.
Yes.
But they are punctual.
So his two pieces of advice, guys, remember, depending on the neighborhood, you have to observe. And even at schools, just observe what the people do here because, again, as he said, they don't like when you're rowdy and you hardly hear noise. So even like music that you'd used to be hearing people playing from the cars and such, you don't really hear that. Like the place is so peaceful and quiet. So you have to read the energies in the room, in your community to see what is acceptable and what is not. And also, as he said, with maps in Japan, because they use a lot of paper. And trust me, they are very effective. Because some things you'll find online, and when you actually go to the place, the local, especially for local places, it's better. It's best to get the map. So yeah,
reading a map is a lost skill. Using a physical map. I stayed in Tokyo. I studied abroad in Tokyo in college, which was part of the reason I wanted to come back to Japan. The whole time I was there, I had zero data for my phone. I could only use Wi-Fi, like when I was at the convenience store. So for about 2 months, I navigated Tokyo just with a map, just like with a train map and with the local maps around the train stations. And it works. It works so well. So recommend.
Okay, thank you so much, Dylan, for your time. Thank you for doing this interview and sharing your experiences with us. I don't take it for granted, and I am grateful that we're bringing awareness to persons who might want to come and what it is, because you can get so much information before coming here, but when you're actually in the country, like it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming at first, but as you become more comfortable, I think it's very easy to become very comfortable with living here. Yeah. But it is a lot to get a hang of.
Okay, so if you have any questions, guys, you can post it in the comment section, and we will try to answer them as best as possible. So remember, he's from Hyogo in Katoshi. Thank you so much for the knowledge that you've shared and the wisdom. So many blessings. Bye. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, guys. For persons who if you know anybody that wants to come to Japan, wants to learn about Japan vicariously, that's also fine. All right. Bye.